Aqueduct had canceled. Laurel had canceled. Certainly, that left some money in the pockets of people who would normally take a look at those two tracks. And with the big day down at Tampa, you would have to think some of that action shifted down to the west coast of Florida because they had a record-breaking day. All sources handle $20.7 million, which crushed the former record of 15.2. It was 20.7, the former record 15.2. That that is some record for their festival day down there, highlighted obviously by the Tampa Bay Derby. And we'll take a look at the Tampa Bay Derby a little bit later on with Mike MacAdam. But in the meantime, we'll take a look at some of those undercard stakes races, because it was a really nice card. And yesterday we had Steve Bick on, who was doing his radio show this week from Tampa, and he was in Tampa obviously yesterday at the Waffle House a little bit earlier. We heard about that. But he was kind of updating us and said, as we talked in the morning, and Marty McGee had tweeted out from the Daily Racing Forum that a storm had a pretty big storm had come through, but it had passed through pretty quickly. And Steve felt, it seemed like fairly confident that maybe the weather would clear up. And, you know, we were kind of knocking wood and keeping our fingers crossed, and that would hold up, because you like to see the weather hold up on big days at racetracks so that the nice stakes cards can hold together, particularly those turf stakes, and they had some nice ones yesterday. And as the day played out, it worked out that way. And by, you know, out of mid-afternoon or so, watching the signal, sun had come out, and so things held together pretty nicely down at Tampa, and again led to that record festival day handle for them. So I'm happy that you know, it all did hold together. It was great racing, and the bettors turned out for it, because I've said many times over the years, people are familiar, I really like Tampa Bay Downs. I used to go there fairly regularly. Haven't been in quite a while now. I got to get back down there. Really one of my favorite tracks. I mean, one of the things is it's running in the winter, so if you're down in Tampa, you're avoiding the weather here and you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt down there. That certainly is one of the bonus angles, but it's fun racing. You know, that turf course attracts the bigger outfits from the east coast of the state, as evidenced yesterday. But Chad Brown at this meet shooting at just under 50% when he brings horses over, and he's brought some nice ones over for some turf racing and some dirt racing. Todd Pletcher's been over, Bill Mott, but the day-to-day racing is fun too, and it's a nice facility. If you've never been, just a nice sized facility, so if you get a little crowd in there, there's a nice little buzz going on, and so it's nice to see them have a good day yesterday in a situation where earlier in the week with the weather, folks were kind of, how's things going to work out for Tampa, and things worked out very well. All right, let's take a look at some of the stakes action from yesterday. As I say, we'll look at the Tampa Bay Derby itself a little bit later on with Mike MacAdam. I'm just checking now. Our friend Steve Bick on Sundays often posts buyer figures for the day. He may be traveling though, because I know he's now headed up to Ocala. So I don't see the buyers up there, but that's okay. We will take a look at the stakes action and judge. We will eyeball judge these and pick up numbers as we go along. There was a number out for the Tampa Bay Derby. I'll alert you to that a little bit later on. But let's kick things off. The Columbia yesterday, I liked Fort Washington. Fort Washington ran okay, wound up running third. I thought Kitten Mischief was also going to be competitive, the Jonathan Thomas Augustin runner, and if you heard us talking about that one yesterday, they wanted the turf in the first start. It was an off-the-turfer. The horse won on the dirt, and so they came back in the 3-year-old debut in an optional claimer on the dirt down at Gulfstream and ran second. So there was 2 okay dirt performances. And, you know, you have a 2-year-old becoming a 3-year-old, you take your shot. And so they took a shot in the Sam Davis, an 8th place finish there. And at that point they said, let's get back to the turf, which we originally wanted for Kitten Mischief, and being from Augustin. I thought Kitten Mischief Kitten Mischief was probably the disappointment. Kitten Mischief went off as the 2-to-1 favorite and wound up 6th in the field of 9. And as I said, I liked Fort Washington. And I also had kind of down at the bottom of my mix, Heaven Street. Heaven Street is going to be the winner. The 5-horse you can see here kind of grinding away and eventually wins by a chart margin of a length. Ben's Malice at 13-1, the 1-horse. Didn't use that one, but comes up the rail for a nice second. And Port Washington, you can see coming late there, runs third for Shug McGahee, Peter Brandt, and company. And in the first start of the season, you can see a nice gallop out from Fort Washington. Fort Washington, that was only the third career start, first start of the season, first start since November. So Fort Washington, again, I liked that horse yesterday, only wound up third, but probably one to watch going forward. But Heaven Street got it done. As they say, the Christophe Clement runner, also making the seasonal debut, had a little more experience than Fort Washington last year. Had been in the barn of Steve Asmussen, yesterday in the barn of Christophe Clement for the first time. Irad Ortiz on board, riding a winner on what was a very nice day for Irad Ortiz. But Heaven Street gets it done amongst the 3-year-old fillies on the turf yesterday. And as I say, I always talk about the 3-year-old males on the turf. I love that subdivision. 3-year-old fillies are fun too. And I like it because from the get-go, from early in the year down at Gulfstream and over at Tampa, as demonstrated by a race like this, in both of those subdivisions, 3-year-old males, 3-year-old fillies on the turf, there's a great series of stakes races. Not necessarily coherent series. There are those mini series, like the Invitational now in New York. But I think overall, throughout the year, really great racing for that subdivision. And we'll typically get 3 or 4 that'll kind of parse themselves out at the top of those divisions, and it'll be fun to see if they wind up in some of these races together as the season progresses. So I enjoyed the 3-year-old turf racing, male and female. And I think coming out of that race, Heaven Street, certainly one to watch, 3-year-old debut. That was a nice win. But I think Fort Washington will certainly be one to watch too, and being a Shug Peter Brandt horse, we'll likely see that one up at Saratoga, and Heaven Street in the Clement barn also. So these will be horses to watch going forward as the season progresses with, as I say, that kind of fun subdivision. In this case, the 3-year-old males in the Columbia yesterday with Fort Washington and Heaven Street. And as I say, they separate themselves out. I don't know whether we've separated ourselves out yet, though. I think last year was pretty similar. Typically, you'll get to March or April, and there may be 1 or 2 you can start to point to and think, oh, okay, the cream is rising to the top, as it were. Last year and so far this year, I'm not quite sure. I'd have to go back and look a little more, but I'm not quite sure we're really separating out yet. But it'll be fun to watch going forward. And as I say, those 2 from yesterday. And Ben's Malice, I'm not going to knock Ben's Malice at all, but Ben's Malice had 7 starts already and had been knocking at the door, most of it at Tampa. And so that to me was just one of those, on a big day, you get those locals who kind of slip in the mix. We shall see going forward. You know, the trainer is more based in the Midwest, so I don't know whether Ben's Malice will have the chance to be as high profile as the other 2 coming from Shug and Christophe Clement. But Fort Washington, Heaven Street could be players on that 3-year-old turf scene going forward. All right, let's turn the page now and go to the Florida Oaks. This one, 3-year-old fillies on the grass. And as I say, both of these subdivisions are kind of fun. And I think in this subdivision, we maybe labeled at least one, but probably a couple of horses to watch as well. I like Sweet Duchess. Sweet Duchess is the number 5 as we pick it up. I thought I was in a good spot. A Little Love and Luck, the number 7, was the one I had underneath. Both locals, I thought they were both going to do okay. You can see 5 and 7 are there, but they both kind of swung wide on the turn, which was not where you wanted to be on the turf course, A Little Love and Luck in particular. But, and I said it yesterday, shame on me, I wasn't totally enamored. That's Dolce Zell winning, but it was Spicer on the inside. And I said, shame on me, because it's Chad Brown exacta there. And he's just under a coin flip at Tampa, meaning he's just under 40% when he ships horses over. And typically, day in and day out, as we're in here handicapping, I'm just using those. You have to look at and use those horses. Yesterday, I thought the stakes race was a little more interesting, a little more competitive, though, and so I went in another direction and then absolutely kicked myself because, you had an $8 winner. Spicer actually went off as the 2-1 favorite. You wound up with a Chad Brown exacta that was just under $20. So as I say, I kind of kicked myself. And the two I liked, as I say, particularly a little Love and Luck, who was making some ground on the turn to the point where Jason Beam kind of commented he had some momentum, just went too wide turning into the lane. And so Little Love and Luck winds up sixth in the race. Sweet Duchess wound up fifth, but it was the Chad Brown exacta there. On Alert was third. On Alert, Shug McGahee runner coming over off a couple of decent tries, most recently at Gulfstream. So third was okay, but I thought the first two, obviously with the chart margin being ahead, the two Chad Brown runners were the two that kind of stood out there. So again, on the 3-year-old boys side on the turf and the 3-year-old girls side on the turf, some horses to watch going forward, and horses with New York connections that kind of lead us to believe we will see these horses potentially, certainly up in New York at some point, Belmont and whatnot, but you would think also potentially up at Saratoga going forward as well. A little bit earlier, it was the Challenger fun race. I had been on a podcast earlier this week talking about these stakes races. The Better Betting podcast, Eric Rubin and Gary Quill, and I liked Scalding in the race, and one of the hosts, Eric Rubin, liked Scalding as well, and we were kind of lamenting probably weren't going to get the 12-1 morning line. We didn't, but at 5-1 and a $12 price, I was still happy. Scalding did wind up being the winner. Number 9, Cody's Wish, runs second. Scalding's the number 8. Number 9, Cody's Wish, second. Number 4 is Dynamic One. Number 3 is Greatest Honor. Kind of disappointing for a horse that had some real punch early in the 3-year-old season last year. And that one and Dynamic One were kind of the buzz horses in that they did show the talent last year, but they wind up, again, Dynamic One was third, but it was a non-threatening third, and Greatest Honor winds up sixth in the field of 7. So those two were a little bit disappointing, albeit off of fairly long layoffs, kicking off their 4-year-old season. So we'll see how they follow up. They may benefit from the run. But again, Scalding, interesting runner from Shug with only 4 career starts going into this race, the last 2 being wins. He had a win in the previous start at Tampa. That's a bonus. And so Scalding, maybe an interesting player going forward with a stakes victory now. We'll see. I mean, I'm not sure. Again, I want to see the numbers for the race before we make any decisions of what the blue sky might be for Scalding. But it was a decent effort yesterday. Obviously, Javier Castellano on board. And as I say, he got $12 and change. Didn't live up quite to the 12-1 morning line, but there was also some scratches in there. Hidden Stash may have taken some action. Hidden Stash was 12-1 on the morning line, but some folks were kind of talking about that. That one, as I say, might have taken a little bit of action and helped our price potentially. I don't know if that's a certainty by any means, but again, nice performance by Scalding in the Challenger. And let's also take a look at the stake that kicked off the All Stakes Pick 5. It was the Hillsborough, and again, thankfully, happily, the weather held off so that the turf stakes stayed on the turf because earlier in the day, I think it was Dave Grenig had talked to Chad Brown, and Chad Brown had said potentially if the track conditions were such, he might scratch Bleecker Street, but track conditions stayed fine. Bleecker Street stayed in. I liked Bleecker Street. I liked Lady Spitespear as well. Bleecker Street gets it done for me as the 5-horse makes a nice late run here. And this is a nice late run because the chart margin is going to wind up to be almost 4 lengths. And you can see on the outside coming here, Bleecker Street. Rocky Sky at 92 second. Gladys, the sibling to the number 4, sibling to Rachel Alexander, winds up 3rd. Lady Spitesbear, a little bit disappointing, running 4th. Nice runner for Roger Atfield that had gone 4 for 4 early in the career up at Woodbine, and subsequently on arriving in Florida, close up 3rd, close up 2nd, second last time to Bleecker Street. So I thought Lady Spitesbear was going to run well yesterday. I had her right underneath, but a little bit disappointing with the 4th place finish. That said, I will reiterate, Bleecker Street over Rocky Sky, and it was again Chad Brown exacta. In this race, you wound up with $35 for the Chad Brown exacta. I thought, when I was in here yesterday, I thought with the running lines from Europe for Rocky Sky, Lead, Keen, Close Up, I wondered if Peter Brandt and Chad Brown entered Rocky Sky to go up and keep Lady Spitesbear company. Well, as it turned out, Lady Spitesbear, who I thought might try to take the lead and take them all the way around, Lady Spitesbear did not get the lead. It was Gladys, the sibling to Rachel Alexander, with Lady Spitesbear sitting just off. And Rocky Sky was further back. Rocky Sky early was sitting 3rd off of those two. So Rocky Sky, like Bleecker Street, kind of closed into that finish there. But again, a Chad Brown exacta to complete the finish of the Hillsborough. So if you were on Chad Brown yesterday, you could have, depending on how you parsed out your plays, you could have wound up very, very happy because, as I say, that was a decent little, $35 on the exacta. That's a decent little payout there. But if you've been on Chad Brown at the meet, you're also very happy. As I say, like a coin flip over it. And this race I was on, I kicked myself the later race, as I say, not being, that was a mistake to at least not have the horse, the European import Dolce Zell in the mix. All right, there was more stakes action as well around the country, and over at Oaklawn in the Azeri, this was a fun race because CC comes in as the Eclipse Award-winning filly and mare sprint champion, but stretches out to 2 turns. However, she had won the Apple Blossom at Oaklawn back in 2020, so she had been the 2 turns at Oaklawn and done it successfully. I said yesterday, though, these horses, they get up to, you start to get to be 5 and 6, and you more have your specialty, particularly on the sprint side of things, and you don't see them kind of bouncing back and forth. So it was a question mark, how is it going to work out stretching back out for CC? But classy, champion, She Dares the Devil had won the Azeri this race last year and had done it by beating Latruska, and She Dares the Devil actually went off as the even money favorite. I took a shot with Pauline's Pearl. Probably going to have to step it up, and I will say, I think did step it up yesterday and might have been best. It's tough to say, though, because it was a gutty performance from CC. But Pauline's Pearl got off to a poor start, got squeezed, went to the back of the pack, and then really had to work. But there was a point in the stretch where you thought Pauline's Pearl was going to get it done. But CC is going to be the number 5 horse. She Dares the Devil, the number 7 horse. So you get the duel here, and then Pauline's Pearl, after the bad start, gets the momentum going. And here you think CC's got it in the bag. Well, wait a minute. Pauline's Pearl starts to come again, and She Dares the Devil starts to come again. And then CC says, sorry, gals, not today. And so she wins with a gutsy performance. But as I say, I thought Pauline's Pearl, after the poor start and being in the back of the pack, and again, having to step it up against a couple of horses like CC and She Dares the Devil, man, she ran really well. So I ran second with my pick, but I thought it was still an okay pick because she might have been best in there given the entire scenario we saw. But it was three really nice, runners on the Philly and Mayer side of things that will be fun to watch as the year progresses. And we'll see. They came out of the race. CC's connections came out and said, we'll kind of figure it out, and we'll see if she or the other two come back for the Apple Blossom, because I think Fausto Gutierrez has already said that's kind of the goal for Latruska. So the Apple Blossom is shaping up to be kind of an early season powerhouse of a race. Speaking of Phillies and Mayors, on the 4-year-old Philly side of things yesterday down at Gulfstream, the Hurricane Birdie, I liked Obligatory in this race, but Four Graces certainly had some potential, and the betting public made Four Graces the even money favorite. Obligatory was 6-5. I thought Brambleberry might be a little bit interesting as an outsider. Brambleberry had the lead and looked maybe tough to run down here. Brambleberry's number one. But look at Obligatory. Ears pinned back, and when she gets going, she gets going. And the chart margin winds up to be 3 lengths here. Really nice stretch run. Four Graces, again, the even money favorite. A little bit disappointing running third in here. But this was a really, really nice 4-year-old debut for Obligatory. She had ended the season last year facing Older in the Chaluki and winning at Churchill Downs in November. So it was a nice comeback race to kick off her 4-year-old season. She'll be fun to watch from the Belmont Barn, which is just over the past few weeks just been going so well, and continues to do so with that nice win yesterday from Obligatory. And finally, at Gulfstream yesterday, it was the Captiva Island. I liked Headline Hunter, and Headline Hunter went off as the third choice actually, as the top three were pretty close. At 8-5, it was Miss Aramet. 2-1, it was Miss J. McKay. And my pick, Headline Hunter, was also a 2-1, but just a tick higher than Miss J. McKay. So the longest of those three. Headline Hunter was 12-1 on the morning line, but this one, with a mid-afternoon storm, the turf racing was moved to the synthetic, and Headline Hunter was coming off a nice win on the synthetic. So I think that helped. There were some scratches as well, but that helped knock the odds down, the win on the synthetic last time. She follows it up with a nice win yesterday on the synthetic. Headline Hunter getting it done over Miss Aramet and Miss JK. So it was the three public selections right in the mix there, all running very well. But as I say, Headline Hunter probably benefited from the surface switch there. So that takes you through some of the stakes action yesterday. The nice card at Tampa Bay Downs, a really nice card at Tampa Bay Downs. And as I say, we'll hit on the Tampa Bay Derby in a few. But we'll take a break. And when we come back, as usual on a Sunday, we'll do a little handicapping, maybe take a look at maybe a late pick for at Oaklawn, give some ideas there. We'll do that. And in a few minutes, we'll be joined by Mike MacAdam from the Daily Gazette, who, as I say, is also an NTRA poll voter. We'll get some of his thoughts as far as the 3-year-old scene. Here we are, verging on mid-March, and see what he thinks about maybe the Derby Future Pool that closes this afternoon as well. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the capital region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku.
The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now. Welcome back to Racing Across America. All right, let's jump in and take a look at late pick 4 at Oaklawn. I'm not going to put a ticket together. Scratches aren't out yet, but we'll give some ideas on the sequence. And, of course, remember, we'll be back live this afternoon with OTB Live and take a live look as we go through the afternoon. But Oaklawn's pick 4 kicks off in race number 6 today. Calendar condition claimer, 6 furlongs. I have the 6th at Oaklawn, 5, 9, 8, and 6. Put Plain Talk on top. I'm not quite sure what to do with this horse. In that, haven't seen this one since September at Canterbury. And the Oaklawn form last season was, it was okay. I think the horse gets a little bit of class relief, though. I mean, a lower level, lowish level conditional claimer. Been racing against better at Canterbury, you would think, and certainly last year at Oaklawn. Now, there was a voided claim in the last race in September at Canterbury. So to come back off a layoff, off a voided claim, but they're in for the waiver today, with a layoff like this coming back in a claiming race. And so I like that, the horse is protected. So I think it kind of mitigates that voided claim situation. The workouts aren't necessarily tipping their hand in one way or another. There was a workout right in the middle of February that was okay, though. So if this horse comes back ready to run, might have a little bit of an edge on this bunch. So I tilted in that direction, not with a lot of conviction, but just slightly go in that direction. Steve Asmussen has Verrazano first, probably the contender. Claimed a couple of starts back for owner Steve Asmussen. Claimed for 16. They bounced up to 20 last time, ran okay. Now they get down to 12.5. So I think class-wise, a snug fit with this group. And then Cabot in the third spot. Claimed for 10, 2 back. Tried 16 last time. Now gets down to 12.5. And so a similar scenario to Verrazano first, where I think class-wise, they claimed the horse, tried maybe a little bit better than today. Now they get back down to this level where I think, particularly looking at this particular field, where the horse will be a decent fit. So for me in the 6th at Oaklawn, 5, 9, 8, and 6. Race number 7 at Oaklawn, state bred optional claimers with the calendar money condition, mile and a 16. Excuse me, 1, 11, 8, and 7. I'll put Tappet right on top. Good second place finish last time in a pretty similar event. That was the third in a series of improving buyers since arriving down at Oaklawn. And so I just think the horse is moving in the right direction. Looking at this particular field today, I think the horse is a pretty good fit. Got 6-1 on the morning line. We'll see if that holds. I think this horse may take some action, but I think is in a good spot today. The second spot for me, Mocha Kiss, comes in off a nice second place finish most recently in a similar race. And again, like the top pick, just seems to me maybe moving in the right direction. Had a couple months off from October until December. The comeback was at Remington, then shifted over to Oaklawn, and the 2 starts at Oaklawn, again, have been nice improving efforts. And off the last, I thought, horse is a little bit interesting. Was 27-1 last time, now 5-1 on the morning line. So, really outran its odds. Can this horse, then put a couple like that together? We'll see, but it just seems to be maybe moving in the right direction. And overall has run decently in the past at Oaklawn. Third spot, Heated Argument, fairly lightly raced 4-year-old. Hasn't been seen since really early in January, so a little time on the sidelines. But on a best effort, this horse looks to be a pretty good fit with this bunch. Takes the blinkers off today, has been racing with blinkers throughout the career. I'm not sure what the equipment change will bring, but I just think a little shakeup might be an interesting angle here for this horse. Another one that, excuse me, the most recent workouts aren't really giving anything out But there was one on New Year's Eve that was pretty good. The horses subsequently raced and didn't put in a particularly good performance. But I think that workout, it indicates a little bit of talent, perhaps. I mean, it was a bullet workout. The horse has not lived up to it yet in the two starts at Oaklawn this season. But earlier in the career, boy, the career debut was pretty good. So I think there is some talent here. Maybe we'll see it today. And given what we saw in the last couple of starts, maybe we'll get some value too. 7th race at Oaklawn, 1-11, 8 and 7. In the 8th at Oaklawn, 2, 4, 5, and 6. I'll put Sonneman on top, former stakes quality runner for Steve Asmussen, coming in off some decent tries at Oaklawn. Won't shock me if this horse runs very well this afternoon. Joel Rosario on board. Market analysis in the 2nd spot for Robertino Diodoro, coming off a couple of pretty good tries down at Oaklawn. And Wells Bayou, another stakes quality performer. This one for Brad Cox. This is a fun race. Nice little feature race. Optional claim with the C condition. They're only running for $107,000. But this will be a fun race. I'll tilt towards Sonneman, but I think it's going to be a fun competitive race. The 8th at Oaklawn, 2, 4, 5, and 6. 9th race at Oaklawn today, wrapping things up and wrapping up that late pick 4. Maiden special 3-year-olds going 6, 2, 1, 5, and 6. Slim Man on top. It's Brad Cox. It's a runner that made nice improvements start 1 to start 2. Buyer-wise, finished 2nd in both of those, so ran decently, but the Buyer jumped up over 20 points to a nice 87, which matches up really well with this bunch. Improbable Journey in the 2nd spot. The Larry Jones trainee. The race 2 back attracted my attention. Last time went backwards a little bit, but I think has the potential to bounce back to a better performance. And Mean Jakey in the 3rd spot. Steve Asmussen runner, sired by Violence. Love the Violence runners as win early types with a little bit of a break in the move down to Oaklawn. We'll look for that one to maybe be live. And Asmussen has a firster by Speightstown, the number 6 horse, who I think could be a player as well. This 9th is an interesting race. The 9th at Oaklawn, 2, 1, 5, and 6. All right, we'll take a break. As promised earlier, we'll be joined by Mike MacAdam from the Daily Gazette. Sports writer / turf writer for the Gazette, also an NTRA poll voter, and we'll get some thoughts on 3-year-olds at this time of the year from Mike. All of that right after this. Stay tuned. Having trouble finding us? It's actually quite simple. Whether online or on your TV, it's never been easier to watch and wager on championship horse racing with Capital OTB. Simply log on to capitalotbbet.com. There you can watch our morning shows, live stream races, and wager on our state-of-the-art wagering platform. You can also watch from the comfort of your home on Spectrum Cable Channel 1250 or Fios Channel 467, and win more with Capital OTB.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, joined now by Mike MacAdam, the, as I said earlier, sports writer / turf writer for the Daily Gazette, but also a voter in the weekly NTRA poll. Mike, good morning.
Morning, Seth. How are you today? Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you on. Again, as a voter on the poll, this time of year, There's the general poll, and then there's also the 3-year-old poll. But I thought we'd bring you on and talk a little 3-year-old action, as it is that kind of Derby Trail time of the year. And what, just out of curiosity, the mechanics of the poll, what do you have to have that in like on tonight, Sunday night? When do they expect the voting in?
The deadline is usually 12:30 on Monday, unless there's some stakes races on Monday. Then they push it to Tuesday. So, thankfully for a procrastinator like me, I don't have to hustle it up on Sunday. I can sleep in and not think about it. Now, being on your show today sort of forced my hand a little bit, so I had to kind of dig through. I haven't finalized it. I haven't filed my vote yet. I won't do that until tomorrow, but. And not a lot is going to change this week because, we only had the Tampa Bay Derby, unless you like something outside the box that wasn't a stakes race over the past weekend. Last weekend, for instance, was, kind of crazy town because we had 4 races to deal with stakes-wise. The poll doesn't kick in for the first time until like that last week in February, and it's always a challenge, especially with the 3-year-old. You don't really have a lot of body of evidence to go by. The overall thoroughbred poll has its own separate challenge because you have to kind of go back and do a lot of research on, first of all, who retired, but also of the ones who you think didn't retire. Are they even in training right now? I mean, you get some early stuff like, like Pegasus that can make your job easier, but you do have to kind of root around and look at last year's final poll and maybe the Eclipse Awards and the Breeders' Cup and figure out which of those horses are still in circulation before you do that first initial one. It doesn't necessarily get easier. The challenge kind of changes, but the more body of evidence you have, obviously, you have more to work with there.
Yeah, and people can check out the poll every week. Press releases go out and it's on the various racing media, but you can go right to the NTRA website, and I think if you go on the media link, the poll
Correct.
is one of the drop downs, and you can pull it up. And yeah, just looking here before we get to the 3-year-olds, the overall poll, and I'm looking, and yeah, you have Life is Good. You're one of the 33. Life is Good really rocked it in.
No-brainer.
Yeah, 33 first place votes. Latruska got a first place. Flightline got a first place vote. But yeah, Life is Good. And I hadn't even really thought about that. But yeah, the early polls, you are voting for a number of horses that haven't done anything yet. You're kind of anticipating what they're going to do this year.
An entirely different animal from like a few months from now, and especially after the Triple Crown, where we're just doing the overall one, because at that point you have to sort of balance between flavor of the week, flavor of the month, recency versus the overall resume of the season. I try not to treat it as if somebody's holding a gun to my head and said, okay, this is going to be your Eclipse Award ballot tomorrow. I try to take into account the overall resume, but there's a certain amount of recency that comes into play. Now, this early in the voting schedule, it's almost all recency. So you're basically going on by the races that have been run like over the last month or so, or 2 months.
Yeah, we'll hit on the poll again in a second, but before we do that, wanted to go and take a look at the Tampa Bay Derby and get some of your thoughts. Before we show the race, I think the guys may have pulled it up. Steve Bick tweeted out a picture. I liked Major General. I was taking a little shot with Major General. Bick was down there yesterday. He got the shot coming out of the gate, and there you can see Major General really goes down to his knees, and it's just that the race was kind of over at that point for Major General. Winds up last, and if you're wondering what happened to that horse, well, there's what happened to that horse. Just was kind of out of it from the beginning. However, underneath, I had Classic Causeway. I said that horse probably the one to beat. I was certainly with the story rooting for Shipsational. Eddie Barker, veteran a trainer and a New York bred, and I thought a pretty good third place finish from that one. Happy Boy Rocket, I thought could be a player. Major General runs 10th. Happy Boy Rocket runs 9th, so that was a little disappointing as well. But again, Classic Causeway, not only the one to beat, he looked pretty good yesterday. That said, Marty McGee tweeted out 84 buyers. So after last weekend seeing some 90 buyers, the number wasn't spectacular, but it was a pretty good looking effort. What were your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Derby?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. I thought it was a very classy professional performance, but the buyer number kind of gives you a little bit of pause, especially in relation to what some of the other ones have done. The 84 it isn't, going back to the NTRA poll, I'm going to get Classic Causeway in there, but I don't know if I'm really going to elevate him up the ladder really that high. Um, uh, he got out of the gate like the the picnic table people on Travers Morning, and that's going to be a good weapon for him moving forward. As if he makes it to the Derby, to avoid any trouble, at the start. So I think he's got kind of a nice tool there as far as getting out of the starting gate and putting himself in whatever position IRAD wants to put him in at the start. I had a little friendly action wager on Belgrade underneath in the number 2 spot. No excuses there. The one thing I kind of noticed was Grantham. Irad really, he didn't go way wide, but he went into the middle of the track and left a huge door open for Grantham on the rail. And when they came off the turn and Grantham was kind of like right there, I was like, okay, let's see, without knowing really how the track was playing or anything like that. Let's see if Irad may have made a little mistake there, but the horse was so clearly the best that it just didn't matter.
Yeah, and again, it was a pretty good-looking performance. I'm with you. It's going to be interesting to see. And let me just pull up here because I do have the odds after yesterday. 8-1 now on the Derby future pool. Forbidden Kingdom is sitting at 6-1. Smile Happy also at 6-1. So that makes Classic Causeway the third choice in there after yesterday. But again, with the buyers last weekend, they were a little more impressive. So between last weekend and this weekend, and last weekend to me, why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about that. Last week to me, Simplification, Forbidden Kingdom, and Morello. Out of what we've seen so far in the 3-year-old preps, that was maybe the weekend that stood out a little bit, with all 3 of them hitting 90 buyers, which aren't spectacular, but this year are kind of notable, I think. Looking at your poll top 10, you put all of those 3 in the top 10. Overall, all of those 3 are sitting in the overall poll, second, third, and fourth behind Epicenter. So it seems like everybody kind of taking a look at the second, third, and eighth, actually. Morello running, being eighth in the poll after last week. And let's talk a little bit about last week, and while we do that, we'll take a look at Morello and the Gotham. And I know you talked to their owners, so give me some of your thoughts on last week's performances.
You still have to wonder if he's a horse for the course at Aqueduct, but and the other question, of course, is the distance. And Dave Lyon of Blue Lion Thoroughbreds, he's the principal owner of the principal partner of the 3 partners that own this horse. He said they want to go to the Wood, and the 1 1/8 there will test his distance, and if he passes that test, then it's on to the Derby. They have an alternative with the Pat Day Mile if the 1 1/8 appears to be too much for him. But until they get there, they love the way their horse ran last weekend in the Gotham, galloped out, which is something that a lot of people identify as a sign that, they're going to want to go longer distance racing wise. Interesting horse. He's named after Tom Morello, the former lead guitarist of Rage Against the Machine. Dave Lyon is a huge fan of the band. They bought him for $250,000 last year out of the Mid-Atlantic 2-year-old in training sale. They loved the way he breezed. And he said the way he ran in the Gotham is the way he ran in that breeze that sold them at the Mid-Atlantic sale last year. So if he can kind of duplicate that in the Wood and the distance isn't too much for him, it's on to the Derby. But this is a horse they can have a lot of fun with this year.
And as I say, Forbidden Kingdom and Simplification made your top 10 as well. Forbidden Kingdom certainly got a lot of buzz on social media last week, and deservedly so, I think. I'm just curious, and again, put up a good number, which kind of validates things. But I'm curious, out in Southern California, what's he beating out there? I'm not sure.
And how big are the fields? Yeah. And, so there's this time of year, there's going to be question marks about pretty much everybody, unless, your secret oath. So, and that's kind of what makes it fun. It's what makes the poll at this time of year challenging and fun, because there's a lot of moving parts and things change and shift every week. And you know, I hate to, you know, for instance, here's a horse like Un Oho who won the Rebel. I didn't even include him in my poll because he's going to have to prove it again. He's going to have to do it again. A long shot who's never did anything before that. So, the three horses that you just mentioned, though, I thought clearly the performance was, you know, so superior that you can't, you either have to put them in there, you know, a pretty high position, or elevate them a little bit from wherever you had them in the first place.
You mentioned Secret Oath, and I called for the guys to pull up a replay of the Honeybee and give us some impressions of what, you know, Secret Oath, and she certainly has looked good in the last two races down at Oaklawn. But as a turf writer as well, this just adds a real fun side story to the lead up to either Oaks or Derby. It came out yesterday that Wayne Lucas is gonna aim Secret Oath to the Arkansas Derby, so that's gonna add real interest there. But as I say, just adds a nice side story of the veteran, the venerable Wayne Lucas, potentially coming to Churchill on Oaks Derby weekend with one, and Ethereal Road, maybe two live contenders.
Well, but then they also, I saw a tweet or a quote or something somewhere where they might be leaning more toward the Preakness than
I
the
saw
Derby.
that too, but then I found it funny he's shooting for the Arkansas Derby because,
right.
And you would think if they win the Arkansas Derby and get enough points, doesn't that calculus shift then?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying, they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth a little bit when they throw the Preakness out there. I can't remember who
I saw it too, but I don't remember. Yeah,
right. But it was thrown out there. Maybe it was just a Twitter speculation, Twitter muscles flexing or something. I don't know what the current odds are on Secret Oath in the Kentucky Oaks right now. I mean, the page I pulled up had her at 6-1, and I would take her at 6-1 if they're leaning toward the Preakness. But if they're going to the Arkansas Derby with the idea that she's going to go use that as a springboard to the Kentucky Derby, then I don't know what to do. So I don't usually play future. Well, I don't think I've ever played a future wager, but it's a little more interesting this year for a variety of factors, not the least of which is her presence and wondering what they're going to do with her.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the live odds here on the OTB bet site. She's 9-2 on the Oaks, but obviously with no points, she doesn't make the Derby pool, but she's in all others, and all others right now is sitting at 5-1. So all others looks kind of attractive to me because, again, Secret Oath may wind up in there.
Well, and then you throw in the Baffert curveball. Like,
yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen with those horses. So maybe 5-1 looks dynamite right now if you have faith in the legal system and them swaying in his favor or his owner's favor to get all of his battalion eligible somehow for the Kentucky Derbies. I mean, 5-1 looks great. I might have to break my future wager maiden.
And I'll mention, because you've already brought up the Baffert name, and looking at your 3-year-old poll, and I said it earlier, the NTRA poll isn't this time of year. There's Kentucky Derby polls out there. This isn't a Kentucky Derby poll. This is a 3-year-old poll. You have Messier on top. The overall poll has Messier sitting in 4th with 12 first-place voters, and you're one of them. And it is. I mean, I think if you talk to a lot of fans as well, Messier would be right up towards the top of their list as far as 3-year-olds overall. So just give some context to that in the poll.
Well, that's exactly how I approached it, and everybody can do what they want. And I understand the sentiment of removing for the time being or however long the Baffert horses. I base it on actual performance that counts. They don't have Derby points, but they still have graded stakes that they've won, and they haven't been disqualified from those, and they haven't lost those. So just based on that landscape, I included everybody and kind of worked around that. It's interesting, you mentioned Life is Good 33. That end of the poll was easy, but the 3-year-old, you've got 6 different horses out of the top 10 who got a first place vote. you also, more notably, Messier, as you already mentioned, has more first place votes than anybody, and he doesn't even crack the top 3, which shows you that if you're going to use the Baffert horses, they're going to be in there. You're going to bet him, or you're going to place him very high in the poll, and then the other people that aren't including the Baffert horses, that eliminates points for a horse like Messier, so he's not going to be at the top of the list. It's a reflection of how the voters are kind of split in whether they're including the Baffert horses or not. And again, I choose to include them because I consider it just an overall 3-year-old poll and not a specific Derby poll.
Yeah, and I think, given that Messier is sitting at number 4, I think there are obviously a number of other voters thinking the same way, which I think is completely fair, given that it is, again, not a Derby poll. It's an overall 3-year-old poll. And so to leave them out, given what potentially will happen as the not only the 3-year-old season progresses, but the Triple Crown season. I mean, he shows up in the Preakness or the Belmont. Well, he shows up in the Preakness, and we'll see about the Belmont. But I think he may wind up being the one that kind of stands out. So it'll be interesting to see how interesting in quotes to see how it all plays out, because it has thrown a complete monkey wrench, obviously, into the Derby scenario this year. And unfortunately, maybe it will play out in the legal system, which, again, is not necessarily good for horse racing overall. But I also wanted to just see if, when you looked at the future, anything else stood out at you. And I wanted to pull up, because I have a replay, horse that I find interesting in here, and I'll probably put a couple of bucks on before the pool closes later today. Cyberknife, 50-1 currently. We're going to watch the stretch run from the Fairgrounds optional claimer back on February 19th. Cyberknife is going to win by 3 lengths. It's a Brad Cox trainee. Now, ran 6th in the Lecomte, which was the only blemish really on the record. This is a horse with a couple of wins and a couple of seconds in 5 lifetime starts. And the Lecomte may just signal not quite up to stakes competition. But I thought this follow-up, which maybe got the confidence back for the horse, I thought this said this horse could be an interesting player on the Derby trail. Obviously, we'll have to get in another prep and kind of validate it. But I thought at 50-1, I'll roll the dice there.
Hey, fired up. So they didn't say anything about the next potential start for this horse? I love the name too, by the way. I don't know why, but Cyberknife just seems like kind of a cool name.
Well, it's an Al Gold horse, so Ginger and Marianne and yada, yada, yada. So you expect a name. They floated out there, I think, Louisiana Derby, but I think they've left options open. But anything you see that at a price, and I will reiterate what I say on all pools, except for all others, which I think you can play around with, and the 5-1 there. We're getting late, but I still think you're going to wind up with a few horses that could be live in the gate, even out of this late date pool, and the 5-1 looks attractive to me. But once you get past that, the all others, boy, it seems like you got to shop around for 20-1 or so, because you're not just looking for the horse to win. You gotta get to the first Saturday in May.
Which is why, and nothing sticks out, but clearly because I'm writing about Morello next week, I'm curious to see what he is. And now that you just flashed the current odds at 16-1, like I don't want 16-1 because, like you just mentioned, I don't know if he's even going to make it to the race. Until that's etched in stone. Of course, if he wins for fun in the Wood, you're going to get like 10-1 or 8-1 or something like that, which might not be the worst thing in the world either. But that's kind of the weird puzzle of the future wager. You got 2 things going on there. You got to win the race, of course, but you got to get to it also. And a lot of things can happen between now and May, first Saturday in May. So. If I was going to bet Morello right now, I'm going to want to do a little better than 16-1.
Yeah, and as I say, I'm looking for at least 20-1 or something on a clever idea, and so I would tell people to think about that as it gets closer a little bit later today. And also, there's that Oaks Derby future pool double. That may be fun as well. Now you got to get 2 of them to get to that first weekend in May. Mike, as always, appreciate the thoughts. And again, folks can check out the NTRA poll by going to ntra.com. Click on the media link, and then there's a little drop down with the poll.
Tell my friend Alex is watching from Ireland.
Oh, Brian in the control room just said to alert you that our friend Alex is watching from Ireland. So he's giving you a thumbs up from.
He's breaking my heart, and this is Alex Sawsville, and he's been to every track on the planet, and the one that I could hold over his head was the Curl, which me and my siblings went to in 2005, and then he finally went. He had to rub my nose in it. He went there earlier this year or last fall or whenever it was, and he had to send me a photo or a text, and so now I don't even have that anymore. But we love Alex, and I'm glad he made it there, and I'm sure he's having fun. He's in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day.
I hadn't thought about that. Oh, and you're.
I hope he makes it back alive.
They like that in the control room too. Mike, appreciate it. Oh, and I said you can check out the poll at ntra.com, but obviously follow Mike on Twitter and check out his work in the Daily Gazette. Appreciate it. We will talk again.
Thanks a million, Seth. I'll see you at Desperate Annie's. That's the gratuitous reference.
Always got to get it in. Thanks a lot. Mike MacAdam, again, the sports writer, turf writer for the Daily Gazette, and as I say, one of the voters on the weekly NTRA poll as well. Don't forget that future pool closes today. On the male side of things, I believe it's 6. The Oaks is 6:30. I'm not sure about the Oaks Derby future double. That's going to be right in that area as well. But jump in, like I say, boy, that all others. We're starting to solidify in points, but you have some big points races going. You get all others, and as I say, Secret Oath may be in there, but you'll get a small handful at least of live runners, I would think, potentially at 5-1. And 5-1 is short, and as I say, you're looking for 2, but you're going to wind up with more than one, and you're going to have horses that likely have made a little noise in the last series of preps. So you'll get some live horses, and as I say, more than one, little handful of them, maybe at that 5-1. So the all others is kind of attractive, and I'm going to take a little shot with Cyberknife, I think, as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Been a fun edition of Racing Across America. As always, we appreciate your tuning in. We also appreciate the sponsorship of Gulfstream Park. During their championship meet, we appreciate their support of this program, some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Don't forget, match bet promotion here at the clubhouse today. Again, everybody was cooped up yesterday. Get out and have some fun and come on down to the racebook and watch some racing from our venue. You can grab a little lunch here. You can sit at the bar. You can get a carol. You can bring some friends and sit at one of the tables. You can watch some of the basketball action on our sports TV screens at the end of the building. And you can also maybe get a little extra dough with your match bet promotion today. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Happy everybody that did tune in because obviously we had to change the clock. So it was a little bit of a different time today vis-a-vis, the clock change. But we were talking about it yesterday. It's different now than it used to be because now a lot of the stuff changes. First of all, everybody relies on their phone these days. The phone automatically changes, but a lot of your devices change automatically too. So it's a little harder to make the excuse, I didn't change my clock because it pretty much automatically happens. So again, we're happy it all worked out as far as all of you tuning in today. Don't forget, as far as tuning in, again, be back in about with the time and with an hour and a half or so, probably likely to kick in. Maybe we'll jump in a little bit early before NYRA pregame to get things started. So that may be an hour or so, one way or the other. We will kick off with a Sunday afternoon OTB live in the lunchtime-ish period. Let's leave it open like that. So we'll appreciate your tuning in this afternoon for some live looks. That's always fun. So once again, thanks for tuning in this morning. I'm Seth Merrow. We appreciate it. We'll see you in an hour and a half or so, lunchtime-ish, for OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. See you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.